Welcome to the edge of the world, where the sun barely rises in winter and the nights are painted with the aurora. A land of ice, wind, and endless horizons, where life is both fragile and extraordinary. Here, in the frozen heart of our planet, survive the forgotten people of the Arctic, a people who have learned to live in harmony with the harshest climate on Earth. Today, we journey into a world of wonder, resilience, and breathtaking beauty. This is the Arctic as you've never seen it before. Prepare to witness survival, tradition, and the indomitable human spirit in the land where every day is a battle and every life is a triumph. The Arctic described the silence, the endless white, the cold that feels alive. Then introduced the idea that while most of the world sees the Arctic as empty, it is home to people who have survived here for thousands of years. Explore the contrast between perception and reality. Establish the landscape. Drifting ice sheets, polar night, northern lights, frozen oceans. Highlight the resilience of the people and hint at the mysteries of how humans survive in a world this harsh. Build emotional curiosity about their lives. Have you ever wondered what silence sounds like at the edge of the world? Not the silence of night or a quiet room, but the silence of a place so untouched, so impossibly vast, that even the wind seems afraid to speak. This is the Arctic, a land where time slows, where the horizon vanishes into a blinding white eternity, and where every breath becomes a small victory over a world built from ice. Most people imagine the Arctic as empty, but they couldn't be more wrong. Because out here, beyond the frozen seas and beneath skies that never settle, live some of the most resilient people on Earth. And their story is one the world rarely hears. The Arctic greets you like another planet. There is no gentle introduction. The cold arrives instantly sharp, ancient, and unending. It bites through layers of clothing and settles in your bones. Every sound feels distant, swallowed by the snow. It's a place where the land itself seems alive, shifting and groaning as ice sheets drift across the ocean. Snowflakes don't fall, they glide, carried by winds that feel older than humanity itself. And yet, in this world of extremes, people have not only survived, they've thrived. Imagine stepping onto a frozen coastline where the ocean below you is solid, and small wooden homes peek out from beneath heavy snowdrifts. These are the villages that have stood for centuries, anchored in isolation but rich in memory. The people here belong to the land as much as the ice does. Their ancestors crossed these frozen deserts long before history was written, learning to read the snow, track the wind, and navigate the white horizon, with nothing but instinct and experience. The days begin not with sunlight, sometimes the sun is gone for months, but with the soft glow of lamps inside tiny homes. You hear the distant bark of sled dogs echo across the ice, the crack of frost shifting beneath heavy boots, and the quiet rhythm of a community waking to a world that never truly rests. Here, survival isn't a single skill. It is a culture, a mindset, a way of life built through generations. Children learn early how to move across ice without breaking it, how to recognize the difference between strong snow and deadly snow, and how to find their way even when the landscape turns into a featureless white void. Standing in the Arctic, you realize something profound. This is not a forgotten world, it is a hidden one. A place where every choice is intentional, where nature is respected like a powerful elder, and where life continues not in spite of the cold, but because people have learned how to live with it. The northern lights swirl above as if painted by invisible hands, illuminating the frozen earth in shifting green fire. And somewhere beneath that cosmic glow, a fisherman prepares his tools, a mother warms her children, and a hunter sharpens the blade passed down from his father. Everything here is connected. Every movement is careful. Every breath is cherished. The Arctic teaches you humility the moment you arrive. It reminds you how small humans really are, and yet, how extraordinary our ability to adapt can be. These communities have turned impossibility into routine, transforming a land of ice into a place of meaning, memory, and quiet strength. And as the night deepens and the cold thickens, you understand why they endure. Because out here, surrounded by endless white, the Arctic tells a story unlike any other. A story of people who live not on the edge of the world, but at the heart of its most ancient mystery. Move into describing the daily life of Arctic communities, small villages, wooden homes buried in snow, the struggle to keep warm. Describe the morning routines shaped by darkness and frost. Show how food, heat, and safety depend on rituals passed down through generations. Emphasize the delicate balance between tradition and survival. Create a vivid sensory atmosphere. Icy breaths, cracking ice beneath boots, distant dogs howling. Make it cinematic and deeply human. To understand life in the Arctic, you must first understand its rhythm. Here, the seasons do not simply change, they transform the entire world. One moment, the land is locked in an endless night where the sun refuses to rise. And then suddenly, months later, daylight explodes across the sky without ever dipping below the horizon. These extreme cycles are not just phenomena. They shape daily life, emotion, and survival for the people who call this frozen frontier home. As winter clamps down, darkness becomes a companion. Villages are lit only by the soft glow of windows, snow lanterns, and the shimmering curtains of the aurora borealis. The northern lights become almost like a second sun, an unpredictable, ghostly presence that paints the ice with slow-moving rivers of green and violet. Children watch them from the safety of warm doorways, mesmerized as the sky bends and twists, as if reacting to something only the Arctic can understand. During this time, life contracts inward. Families gather around fires, sharing stories passed down for generations, tales of great hunts, spirits of the snow, tricksters that roam the frozen world, and the ancestors who first carved a life from this endless white expanse. These stories aren't just entertainment. They are teachings, lessons hidden inside legends, reminders of how nature must be respected and how easily things can go wrong if you forget. Every task becomes a negotiation with the cold. Fetching water from frozen lakes requires drilling through layers of ice thicker than a person. Sled dogs, strong and tireless, wait eagerly to pull their teams across ridges of hard-packed snow that shine like polished stone. Hunters travel miles to find caribou or seals, moving silently across the tundra with knowledge inherited, not taught in books. Each decision carries weight. One misstep on thin ice or one storm misjudged can shift a normal day into a fight for survival. But then, everything changes. As spring slowly awakens, the Arctic takes its first breath after months of stillness. Light creeps back into the world in soft shades of blue and gold, and with it, a sense of renewal. Snow begins to melt in shimmering sheets that slide from rooftops. Tundra plants, tiny bursts of color that survive beneath the frost, push themselves toward the returning sun. Birds arrive from thousands of kilometers away, filling the quiet with sudden, joyous calls. Life expands outward again. Children run along thawing paths. Villagers repair fishing nets, and boats once frozen into place are carefully pushed back into open water. The sea ice cracks and shifts like giant puzzles breaking apart. Each crack echoes across the land like distant thunder. With the thaw comes opportunity: fishing, hunting, gathering, reconnecting with places unreachable in winter. Then comes summer, a season unlike anywhere else on Earth. The sun hangs in the sky at midnight, casting a golden glow that feels almost surreal. This never-ending daylight energizes everything: humans, animals, even the landscape. People travel farther, work longer, and celebrate with festivals that honor their ancestors and the natural world that sustains them. Under the midnight sun, you see the Arctic not as a barren wasteland, but as a land bursting with life, movement, and color. But just as quickly as it came, summer fades, replaced by fall, a short, powerful season painted in deep reds and golds. The tundra becomes a tapestry of fiery color before the winds return to sweep it all away. Preparations begin once more. Insulating homes, gathering food, storing fuel, and ensuring everyone is ready for the long, dark winter that waits beyond the horizon. This cycle repeats endlessly, but for Arctic communities, it is not a challenge, it is a way of life. Each season brings gifts and hardships, and over generations, the people have learned to move with that rhythm rather than against it. In the Arctic, survival does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who listen to the wind, to the ice, to the lessons of the elders, and to the heartbeat of the land itself. Dive into traditions, celebrations, and communal gatherings. Show how storytelling, ancient dances, and traditional songs keep cultures alive. Describe the importance of family, the strength of community, and the beauty of sharing warmth. Paint scenes of fire-lit huts under glowing auroras. Explore spiritual beliefs tied to the land, ice, and sky. Let the chapter feel warm despite the environment. The Arctic may appear empty from a distance, a vast sheet of ice stretching to the ends of the earth, but this frozen world is alive with movement and sound if you know where to look. Beneath its silence lies one of the most complex ecosystems on the planet. A place where every species, no matter how small, plays a crucial role in maintaining the delicate balance that has existed for thousands of years. It begins under the ice, an unseen universe that thrives in darkness. Microscopic algae cling to the underside of frozen sheets, glowing with a faint green hue when caught in the right light. These tiny organisms feed billions of zooplankton, which in turn nourish fish like Arctic cod fin, silver bodies flashing in the frigid water. This hidden world forms the foundation of the Arctic's entire food web. Without it, nothing else survives. Above them glide the quiet hunters of the sea. Seals slip in and out of breathing holes carved through the ice, their whiskers twitching as they sense vibrations in the water. Walruses, massive and heavy, gather on ice floes in roaring colonies, their long tusks clicking as they jostle for space. They feed on clams and shellfish buried deep in the seabed, turning the ocean floor with their whiskered snouts like plows. And then there are the giants. The Arctic is a sanctuary for whales, bowheads, narwhals, belugas, each with its own personality and mythology. Bowhead whales, ancient and slow, can live for over 2 centuries, longer than any other mammal on Earth. Narwhals move in synchronized groups, their spiraled tusks piercing the air like swords from a legend. Belugas, with their pale, ghost-like bodies, sing complex songs that echo through icy waters for kilometers. These creatures navigate by memory, instinct, and ancestral pathways older than human civilization. But no animal symbolizes the raw power of the Arctic more than the polar bear. The great white bear moves across the ice with a grace that contradicts its size. Each step is deliberate, each breath visible in the freezing air. They are solitary hunters, relying on sea ice as their platform to catch seals. To the Inuit, they are more than animals. They are beings of strength, intelligence, and spiritual significance. Stories passed down through generations teach that polar bears watch, listen, and understand the world in ways humans cannot. Yet, even the polar bear must respect the Arctic's unwritten rules. One wrong calculation, one storm too fierce, and the hunter becomes vulnerable. Here, every creature walks the thin line between abundance and scarcity. On land, life is equally remarkable. Arctic foxes, with their fluffy white coats, sprint across the tundra in zigzag patterns, listening for the faintest rustle beneath the snow. With astonishing precision, they leap into the air and dive headfirst to catch hidden prey. Caribou migrate in massive herds, moving like a living river across the landscape. Millions of hoofbeats drum the earth as they traverse mountains, valleys, and frozen plains guided by instincts older than recorded history. Birds arrive from across the world, some traveling halfway around the globe, just to breed during the brief Arctic summer. Puffins with brightly colored beaks, snowy owls with piercing yellow eyes, and Arctic terns, which make the longest migration of any animal on Earth. They bring life, sound, and color to a land that winters in silence. But behind this beauty lies a truth. The Arctic is balanced on a knife's edge. Every species depends on another. If one falters, the entire system trembles. It is a chain of life so intricate that even a small change, a shift in temperature, a delayed freeze, a disrupted migration can send ripples across thousands of kilometers. For thousands of years, the people of the Arctic have lived harmoniously with this fragile ecosystem. They hunt only what is necessary, guided by traditions that forbid waste and demand respect. They understand that survival depends not on conquering nature but on cooperating with it. And as the world changes, this balance grows increasingly threatened. The ice that once stretched firm and unbroken now cracks earlier each spring. The animals must adapt, but some changes come too quickly, even for the Arctic's most resilient creatures. Still, life here endures, because the Arctic is not defined by its cold or its isolation. It is defined by its persistence, its rhythm, its ability to survive, evolve, and rise again, season after season, generation after generation. In this vast frozen kingdom, survival is not a miracle. It is a legacy. Arctic storms winds that can erase entire paths within seconds. Describe the terrifying power of blizzards and how experienced locals navigate them. Explore tools, clothing, techniques, and instincts developed over generations. Show the difference between life and death decisions. Give the viewer a sense of fear, respect, and awe. Highlight how children grow up learning these skills. Let the audience feel the danger and admiration for the people living here. When you live in the Arctic, you don't observe the seasons, you endure them. And the most unforgiving of all is the long polar winter, a stretch of darkness so deep and so absolute that it feels as if time has stopped. This is the season that tests everything: the land, the wildlife, and the people who call this frozen world home. Imagine waking up and realizing the sun will not rise today, nor tomorrow, nor for months. The horizon remains in eternal twilight, glowing faintly blue at midday before sinking once more into pitch-black night. The cold is not just a temperature, it is a presence. It fills the air, clings to your eyelashes, seeps through every layer of clothing, and freezes exposed skin within minutes. This is the Arctic winter. And yet, life continues. For the indigenous communities who have lived here for thousands of years, this season is not something to fear. It is simply part of the rhythm of existence. They prepare with a precision that comes from generations of knowledge. Homes are sealed against the wind. Supplies are stored carefully. Tools are sharpened. Food is preserved in ancient ways, smoked, dried, fermented, ensuring that nothing spoils in the months when hunting becomes nearly impossible. Inside their homes, families gather around warm lamps. The light flickers gently, casting shadows that dance like spirits on the walls. Children listen to stories of old tales of great hunters, legendary animals, and powerful forces of nature. In the Arctic, storytelling is more than entertainment. It is survival. It passes down wisdom, identity, and the values that hold a community together through the darkest times. Outside, the landscape transforms into something both frightening and breathtaking. The wind roars across the plains like a living creature. Snowstorms appear without warning, swallowing the world in white. A person can lose direction within seconds. Even seasoned hunters rely on instinct as much as sight, navigating by memory, by patterns in the snow, by the feel of the wind against their cheeks. But then, there are the moments that remind you why people stay. On clear nights, the sky erupts with color. The aurora borealis ribbons of green, purple, and blue swirl overhead like celestial dancers. They stretch across the horizon, shimmering and transforming with every passing second. For the Inuit, these lights are more than a natural phenomenon. They carry stories, beliefs, and deep spiritual meaning. Some elders say the lights are the spirits of ancestors playing in the sky. Others believe they are messages, guiding the living and protecting the people of the ice. In the polar night, these lights become companions silent, beautiful reminders that even in darkness, there is wonder. The animals of the Arctic endure the winter with equal resilience. Polar bears wander the frozen sea, their white fur glowing silver under the faint moonlight. Arctic hares huddle together to share warmth. Lemmings carve intricate tunnels beneath the snow, surviving in a hidden world insulated from the biting wind. And then there is the Arctic fox, the clever survivor of the tundra. Its coat turns pure white in winter, allowing it to vanish completely against the snow. When storms hit, the fox curls into a tight ball, letting the snow bury it, creating a natural shelter that insulates against the cold. Its adaptability is a symbol of the Arctic itself. Small, resourceful, and determined to live no matter the odds. For humans, winter also means danger. Traveling across the ice requires skill and courage. Cracks can open suddenly. The cold can claim fingers and toes before a person even realizes they're losing feeling. Hunters must read the signs of the land with unmatched precision. The texture of the snow, the shape of distant clouds, the way the dogs behave. Every decision matters. Every mistake has consequences. Yet the Arctic people do not see winter as an enemy. They see it as a teacher. It teaches patience, waiting for storms to pass. It teaches humility, accepting that nature always decides. It teaches unity, relying on community to stay safe and strong. And perhaps most importantly, it teaches gratitude. Because when the first morning light finally returns after months of darkness, it is not just a sunrise, it is a rebirth. The horizon brightens slowly, as if the world is inhaling after a long sleep. The sky glows orange and pink. People step outside their homes, lifting their faces to the warmth, their eyes adjusting to the brilliance they almost forgot. In that moment, even the coldest soul feels something powerful, a reminder that cycles end, darkness lifts, and life continues. Here in the Arctic, winter is not merely survived, it is respected. It is understood, and in its own harsh, quiet way, it is cherished. Explore hunting traditions of the Inuit, Sami, and other northern groups responsible, sacred, and sustainable. Describe the deep respect for seals, whales, reindeer, and caribou. Explain how nothing is wasted and how the environment dictates survival. Also, portray modern changes. Snowmobiles replacing sleds, rifles replacing traditional weapons. Show the beauty and difficulty of these traditions today. In the heart of the Arctic, survival is not just a skill, it is a culture. But nothing reflects this more deeply than the traditions of hunting and gathering, the ancient practices that have sustained Arctic communities long before modern tools or technology existed. These traditions are not relics of the past. They are the lifeline of the present, woven into identity, family, and the unbreakable bond between people and the land. Imagine waking before dawn, in a world where dawn itself barely exists. The sky is a dark indigo, the air sharp enough to sting your lungs. Hunters step quietly outside, their breath rising in ghostly clouds. Every movement matters. Every sound echoes across the frozen landscape. Out here, the silence is alive, vast, heavy, almost sacred. The Arctic people hunt not for sport, but for survival. Their respect for the animals they depend on runs deep. Before a hunt, some families still perform quiet rituals, words of gratitude, gestures of reverence. In the Arctic worldview, animals are not possessions. They are providers. They give nourishment, tools, clothing, and life itself. Seal hunting is one of the oldest Arctic traditions. It requires patience beyond imagination. Hunters stand motionless on the ice, listening for the faint sound of a seal surfacing through hidden breathing holes. Hours can pass without movement. In the biting cold, Endurance becomes a test of willpower. When the moment comes, it is swift, precise, and deeply respectful. Every part of the animal is used: meat for food, fat for lamps, skin for clothing. Nothing is wasted. Caribou hunting is equally essential. These herds migrate across vast distances, and following them is both a challenge and a celebration. Caribou provide warm clothing, tools, sinew for sewing, and bones for crafting. For many Arctic families, the arrival of the herd is a moment of abundance, a time when community members come together to share, preserve, and prepare what will sustain them through the harsh seasons ahead. Fishing, too, is a lifeline. Beneath the thick ice, the Arctic Ocean is teeming with life. Cutting a hole in the ice and lowering a line into the blackness below is an act of faith and connection. Some fishers still use traditional bone hooks carved by hand. Others combine ancient technique with modern gear, maintaining the rhythm that has existed for generations. The women of the Arctic hold knowledge that is as vital as the hunt itself. Inside warm homes, they transform raw materials into survival tools. They sew clothing designed specifically for Arctic conditions: double-layered parkas lined with fur, waterproof boots made from sealskin, mittens crafted to hold heat even at temperatures that would freeze bare skin instantly. Their skills are unparalleled. Their craftsmanship passed down through mothers and daughters like a sacred inheritance. Gathering food in the Arctic requires creativity and a deep understanding of the land. Even in such an extreme environment, edible plants grow during the short summer. Arctic berries, small, sweet, and bursting with flavor, are picked carefully and preserved for the long winter. Mosses, roots, and herbs are collected not only for food but for medicines that have healed communities for centuries. Every activity, every ritual, every shared meal strengthens the bond between families and their homeland. These traditions hold stories of survival, triumph, loss, and resilience. When a young boy or girl goes on their first hunt, it is more than a rite of passage. It is a moment of connection with ancestors who walked this same land, followed the same animal tracks, and braved the same storms. But in the modern era, these traditions face new challenges. Climate change is reshaping the Arctic faster than anywhere else on Earth. Ice that once stayed frozen year-round melts earlier in the season. Migration patterns shift. Hunting routes change unpredictably. The knowledge that was once stable, passed down over centuries, must now adapt to a world that is unfamiliar and constantly changing. Yet, even in the face of uncertainty, the spirit of the Arctic people remains unshaken. They innovate without abandoning their roots. They blend modern tools with ancient wisdom. They teach their children not just how to survive, but how to thrive, how to respect the land, and how to honor the animals that sustain them. Because here, traditions do more than feed the body, they feed the soul. When the hunter returns home, greeted by warm smiles and the scent of a shared meal, you feel the heartbeat of the Arctic. When hands work skillfully to prepare food, sew clothing, or carve tools, you witness the living history of an entire culture. These practices are more than survival strategies. They are expressions of gratitude, devotion, and unity. In the Arctic, hunting and gathering do not divide people from nature. They bind them to it. They remind them that life, even in the coldest place on Earth, is a precious exchange, one built on respect, balance, and the ancient promise that the land provides for those who honor it. Describe polar night in all its emotional and psychological intensity. Show daily routines in endless darkness, children walking to school under moonlight, families eating dinner beneath lamps, the loneliness and calm of a sunless world. Explain how people maintain their mental strength, humor, community, storytelling, warmth. Bring in the northern lights as the only natural light in the sky. The Arctic is a world shaped by extremes: extreme cold, extreme distance, and extreme silence. But nothing defines life here more powerfully than the seasons, a cycle so dramatic that it feels almost unreal. For the people who call the Arctic home, The changing of the seasons is not a shift in weather, it is a shift in existence itself. Their routines, their food, their culture, their emotions, everything rises and falls with the light. Imagine waking up in a place where the sun disappears for months, swallowed by endless night. This is the polar night, a season where darkness stretches across the land like a living thing. At first, it feels mysterious, beautiful, even. The sky becomes a deep tapestry of blue and black, illuminated only by stars sharper than anywhere else on Earth. And then, of course, there's the aurora, dancing, pulsing, shimmering like a silent heartbeat in the heavens. It is a spectacle that has guided, inspired, and comforted Arctic people for generations. But the darkness also brings challenges. Without sunlight, day and night blur together. Time feels slippery. Elders say that during the long night, you don't live by the clock, you live by your routines, your fire, your community. Families gather closely, sharing stories, preparing food, repairing tools, and passing down knowledge that sustains them through the frozen months. The darkness strengthens bonds because it forces people together, creating warmth where nature gives none. And then, slowly, something changes. A thin line of gold appears on the horizon, just a whisper of sunlight. People step outside, faces lifted toward it. For just a moment, the world glows. That first return of light is a celebration. Children laugh, elders smile. Even the snow seems to spark with possibility. In places across the Arctic, this moment is honored through small ceremonies, songs, or simply silent gratitude. Because soon after, the world transforms again. The Arctic spring arrives not gradually, but explosively. What was frozen becomes alive. What was silent becomes loud. Rivers crack open with the booming sound of breaking ice. Birds return in great flocks, filling the air with movement after months of stillness. The snow melts at a rapid pace, revealing ground that is waited patiently beneath. For many Arctic families, spring is a time of preparation. It marks the start of migration traditions, moving across the ice, traveling to hunting grounds, gathering resources that winter has hidden away. Sled dogs howl with excitement, ready to run. Boats that were frozen in place begin to glide through open water. Life surges forward with an energy that feels almost sacred. And then comes the most surreal season of all, the midnight Sunday. A world where the sun never sets. Imagine walking outside at 2 a.m. and seeing the sky glowing gold, the light soft and endless. The human brain isn't built for it, yet Arctic people have adapted beautifully. Children play late into the night, laughter echoing across the tundra. Families work long hours on the land because daylight no longer dictates a schedule. The world feels weightless, timeless, almost dreamlike. The midnight sun is a season of abundance. Plants grow rapidly, covering the land with green. Berries swell with sweetness. Animals roam freely, and the people follow, gathering, fishing, and preparing for the next cycle. The long days bring joy, movement, and a sense of celebration, but they also bring a reminder the light never lasts. Soon the warmth fades. Winds shift. Snow returns, first lightly, then completely. The Arctic winter arrives like a tidal wave. Temperatures plunge so fast that breath freezes instantly. Ice thickens on the sea. Storms howl with a ferocity that rattles even the strongest homes. But Arctic people do not fear winter. They respect it. They prepare for it. And when it comes, they meet it with strength shaped by centuries of experience. The seasons of the Arctic are not just weather, they are chapters of life, each one demanding something different from the people who live here. Some seasons demand endurance, some demand energy, some demand patience or gratitude or courage, and all of them, together, shape a rhythm unlike anywhere else on Earth. For outsiders, these dramatic shifts may seem overwhelming, but for the Arctic people, they form a sense of identity. They teach adaptability, resilience, and a deep respect for the natural world. They remind every family, every hunter, every child that survival is not just about strength, it's about harmony. Here, you do not fight the seasons, you flow with them. You listen, you learn, and you honor the lessons they bring. Because in the Arctic, life is not measured by hours or days. It is measured by light, and the absence of it, by the coming of the storms, and the breaking of them, by the return of the sun, and the promise it carries. And through every season, one truth remains constant. Those who live here are not just surviving, they are deeply alive. Open with a visual hook about the explosion of life and color when the sun finally returns. Describe the phenomenon of polar sunrise, the first rays touching the ice after months of darkness. Show the emotional reactions, celebrations, traditions, renewed energy. Explain how wildlife changes, how hunting becomes easier, how travel becomes safer. Create a contrast between darkness and light, cold and warmth, silence and renewed movement. Make it uplifting and visually magical. In the frozen reaches of the Arctic, survival is never a solitary effort. Life here is built on community, a bond so strong that it becomes the true heartbeat of the North. In a land where the environment is unforgiving, where temperatures drop low enough to turn breath into crystals and storms can strike with almost no warning, the support of others isn't a luxury, it is survival itself. And the people of the Arctic have perfected the art of living together. It begins with a simple truth. No one thrives alone on the ice. Generations of Arctic families have built systems that rely on sharing food, sharing responsibilities, sharing knowledge, even sharing warmth. When one hunter returns with a successful catch, it is not stored away for a single family. It is distributed among neighbors, elders, and children. The belief is ancient and enduring. The Arctic gives enough to those who give to each other. Inside their homes, some made of modern materials, others traditional dwellings layered with insulation, families gather in a way that feels almost timeless. The smell of cooking whale meat or boiling seal broth fills the air. Elders sit closest to the hearth, their faces lined with stories, their voices steady and warm. Younger generations listen closely. These conversations are not simply stories. They are survival manuals wrapped in memories. There is a beauty in this generational connection. Elders pass down wisdom not written in books. How to read the snow by touch. How to predict storms from the way the wind shifts. How to understand the mood of the sea simply by watching its surface. These lessons are irreplaceable, and the Arctic people know it. They protect them with the same care as they protect their families. But community is not just about tradition, it's also about adaptation. In the modern age, Arctic towns are learning to blend old knowledge with new technology. Snowmobile run alongside dog sleds. GPS devices sit beside hand-carved compasses. Yet the same rule still applies. Tools may change, but cooperation never does. Whether they travel on sleds or machines, people still look out for each other. In many villages, doors are rarely locked. In the Arctic, a locked door could mean a stranded traveler has nowhere to shelter during a sudden storm, and that could cost a life. So homes remain open, not out of carelessness, but out of shared responsibility. Hospitality here is not an act, it is a cultural law. If someone knocks, you let them in. If someone needs warmth, you give it. If someone is hungry, you feed them. Even celebrations hold great meaning. During important seasonal events like the return of the sun or the start of fishing season, the entire community comes together. Children dance in brightly colored clothing. Drums echo across the snow. Songs in ancient languages rise into the icy air, connecting the present to the past. These rituals reinforce identity. They remind the young who they are, and they remind the old that their heritage is alive. And yet, life here is not without challenges. Isolation can weigh heavily on families. Winters are long, resources limited, and the modern world brings new pressures that earlier generations never faced. But that is precisely why community remains so essential. When someone falls into hardship, physical, emotional, or economic, the community gathers around them, quietly strengthening the weak point, like ice forming solid after a thaw. One of the most extraordinary sights is watching hunters depart together across the frozen sea. They move in a line, sleds, snowmobiles, equipment all synchronized, all connected by mutual trust. If one machine fails, others stop. If the ice cracks, everyone responds. Out on the tundra, the group becomes one body, one mind, one purpose. Children learn this cooperation from a young age. They are taught not just skills, but values, patience, endurance, courage, kindness. They learn that the Arctic is both a teacher and a challenger. It rewards those who respect it and humbles those who ignore its warnings. And through these lessons, children grow into adults capable of carrying their community forward. Perhaps the most touching part of Arctic culture is the way its people handle loss and change. When a respected hunter passes away or an elder takes their final breath, the entire village mourns together. Their grief is shared, just as their joy is shared. They gather in silence, in prayer, in remembrance. The snow outside may be cold, but inside their homes, warmth radiates from unity. In the Arctic, community is not measured by the number of people, but by the strength of the bond. Even tiny settlements feel enormous in spirit. Every person becomes a guardian of the others. Every family becomes part of a larger family. And when you look at the frozen world around them, vast, wild, and merciless, you begin to understand the real miracle of the North. The true marvel of the Arctic is not the ice, the mountains, or even the aurora. It is the people who choose to live here. People who face impossible conditions with unbreakable solidarity. People who prove every day that the coldest places on Earth often hold the warmest hearts. Explore climate change through the eyes of the people who see it first. Describe thinning ice, changing migration patterns, unpredictable storms, collapsing traditions. Show elders recalling a colder, more stable Arctic. Explain how communities adapt and struggle. Make it emotional but factual. Show both resilience and fear, hope and loss. In the Arctic, survival is not just a routine, it is an art form. And at the center of this art stands one of the oldest human traditions on Earth, hunting. But in this distant, frozen world, hunting is not violence. It is not sport. It is a relationship, a delicate agreement between humans and nature, passed down through thousands of years. To outsiders, the Arctic seems harsh and empty, but to its people, it is alive with wisdom. Wisdom written in the ice, the wind, and the tracks left behind in the snow. And it all begins before the sun even rises. In the deepest cold of morning, when the world is silent enough to hear your own heartbeat, hunters prepare. They move slowly and methodically, checking their sleds, sharpening tools, feeding their dogs, or warming their snowmobiles. Every movement has purpose. Every moment has meaning. Because here, one mistake can cost more than a meal. It can cost a life. The Arctic people say, you don't hunt the land. You learn from it. That learning begins with observation. Hunters study distant cracks in the ice, the direction of drifting snow, the calls of unseen birds overhead. These clues might seem insignificant, but to Arctic hunters, they are a language. And this language tells them where seals might surface, where caribou might travel, or whether the sea ice is strong enough to cross. There is no rush in Arctic hunting. Patience is a skill, and silence is a weapon. Hunters wait for hours beside breathing holes, listening to the whisper of the ocean beneath their feet. They know that seals curious, intelligent, and agile will rise when they feel safe. And so the hunter waits, unmoving, blending into the landscape like a shadow of snow. Across the tundra, caribou herds migrate in patterns older than memory. They travel hundreds of miles, navigating by instinct and ancient routes. Hunters follow them carefully, taking only what is needed. Every part of the animal is used: meat for food, skin for warmth, bones for tools. Nothing goes to waste. The Arctic does not allow waste. This respectful exchange is a cornerstone of Arctic culture. Animals are honored, thanked, even spoken to. Before a hunt, some offer a quiet prayer. After a successful hunt, others give a small gift back to the land. These gestures aren't superstition, they are gratitude, a recognition that survival is a shared effort between humans and the wild. The sea, however, is the greatest provider and the greatest danger. Hunting on the ocean ice is a test of courage. Here, the ice can shift, crack, or vanish under your feet. Winds can change in seconds, turning calm seas into violent traps. Yet Arctic hunters have mastered these waters with skills passed from fathers to sons, mothers to daughters. Some travel by kayak, sleek, silent vessels that glide across icy waves. Others rely on umiaks, large open boats that carry groups far along the coast. Harpoons, though ancient, are still used in some places, a symbol of tradition and incredible precision. Whaling, where practiced, is done with deep respect and strict rules. It is a community effort, and the meat is shared with every family. A successful whale hunt can sustain an entire village through the brutal winter. And for the people of the Arctic, this is not just food, it is identity, culture, survival woven into one. But hunting is not only physical, it is mental. Hunters must remain calm under pressure, aware of every sound, every shadow, every crack in the ice beneath them. Young hunters learn early that fear is natural, but never allowed to lead. Experience is their guide, intuition their compass. Even the dogs, loyal and strong, are more than companions. They are teammates. Dog sleds once formed the backbone of Arctic travel, and in many regions they still do. These dogs know the land, smell danger in the air, and sense patterns humans could never detect. Together, hunter and dog become a single unit, moving across the tundra in perfect harmony. Over time, modern technology has made some aspects easier. GPS, radios, rifles, but the soul of Arctic hunting has never changed. The values remain untouched: respect, gratitude, balance, courage. And yet, this ancient relationship is now facing its greatest challenge. Climate change is melting sea ice earlier each year. Migration routes shift unpredictably. Animals once abundant become scarce. Hunters who have known the land their whole lives now find that the land itself is changing. They must adapt faster than ever before. In their eyes, you see resilience, but also worry. They ask, will future generations still recognize the Arctic they grew up in? Still, the hunters continue to teach, to share knowledge, to guide the young. Because as long as there are people in the Arctic, there will be hunting, a connection to the earth that is older than history. Watching a hunter walk across the vast white horizon, you understand something profound. This is not a battle between man and nature. It is a partnership, a bond forged through ice, wind, danger, and survival. The Arctic hunter is not conquering the land. He is keeping the ancient promise alive. Arctic technology, globalization, tourism, and resource exploitation. Explore how young generations navigate a world split between tradition and modern identity. Describe how smartphones reach villages where fresh fruit barely does. Show modern jobs, replacing ancient roles, yet culture still holding strong. Describe education, migration to cities, and the struggle to preserve language and heritage. Make it reflective and forward-thinking. In the Arctic, silence isn't empty. It's a living force, one that listens, one that watches, and one that tests every soul daring enough to call this frozen frontier home. But within that vast silence, there is movement, a heartbeat, a rhythm of survival that has pulsed for thousands of years. And today, we step deeper into a world where ancient wisdom and modern challenges collide, where every decision can mean life or death, and where the legacy of entire cultures hangs in the balance. For the Arctic people, survival has never been about conquering nature. It has always been about understanding it. And nowhere is this more clear than in the traditional methods passed from one generation to the next, methods shaped not by textbooks, but by the unforgiving hand of experience. Elders still teach youth how to read wind currents, recognize predator tracks buried beneath snow, and sense weather shifts hours before they appear. It's knowledge that satellites can't replicate, algorithms can't predict, and outsiders can't fully comprehend. This is wisdom carved into memory through repetition, respect, and reverence for the land. But while the foundations of survival remain ancient, the modern Arctic brings new and unpredictable challenges. Winters are shorter than they once were. Sea ice doesn't freeze as thick. Storms arrive with little warning, hitting harder than before. The very map that Arctic communities rely on, formed by generations of observation, is beginning to change. And so they must adapt, not just physically, but mentally, merging ancestral knowledge with new tools and technologies. Snowmobiles replace sleds in many villages, but the spirit of the journey remains the same. GPS devices help hunters navigate whiteouts, yet they're never fully trusted because batteries die in the cold, signals fail, and in the Arctic, relying on a single tool can be dangerous. Even with modern gear, the rule is simple. Survive as your ancestors did, by listening to the land first, and everything else second. In some communities, youth learn both worlds simultaneously. In classrooms, they study climate science. At home, they learn how to butcher a seal or spot thin ice from a distance. It is an education unlike anywhere else on Earth, one that blends two timelines into one identity. And for many, it is a source of pride. They are the bridge between the Arctic's past and its uncertain future. But survival in the Arctic is not only about skill, it is also about unity. These communities rely heavily on one another. A hunter returning with food doesn't keep it for himself. He shares it with elders, neighbors, families with young children. A broken snowmobile becomes a village-wide problem. Because here, one person's mobility affects the safety of the entire community. In the Arctic, isolation doesn't create distance, it creates connection. And yet, the greatest threat to Arctic survival is something no skill or tradition can fully stop: change. Rapid, global, unstoppable change. Melting permafrost destroys home. Shifting migrations disrupt centuries-old hunting routes. Even the animals themselves are acting differently, traveling farther, diving deeper, appearing later or not at all. For the Arctic people, survival isn't just a test of endurance anymore. It has become a test of resilience in the face of a world transforming around them. But despite the challenges, the Arctic spirit remains unbroken. It is a spirit forged by the elements, strengthened through generations, and held together by a profound respect for nature. The people of the ice have adapted before, and they will adapt again. Their survival is not an accident. It is a legacy. And as long as they continue to honor their traditions while embracing the tools of the present, the heartbeat of the Arctic will continue. The Arctic is not just changing, it is teaching. It shows us what humanity looks like when stripped down to its essential truth: cooperation, courage, and the will to endure. And in this frozen silence, the forgotten people remind us of something powerful. Survival is not just about living through the storm, it's about learning from it. Arctic teaches us about humanity, bring together the themes of resilience, tradition, nature, and identity. Summarize the extraordinary ability of Arctic people to survive where others could not. Describe the beauty of their culture, the fragility of their environment, and the dignity of their lives. Leave the viewer inspired, humbled, and more connected to the unseen corners of our planet. end with a cinematic, emotional closing moment. This journey through the Arctic, we arrive at a place where the land, the people, and the ice converge into a story that transcends survival. This is a story of endurance, but also of resilience, adaptation, and hope. For thousands of years, humans have inhabited this frozen expanse, and today, they continue to do so not as conquerors of the Arctic, but as its humble partners. Their legacy is written in the frost, etched into the tundra, and whispered by the wind across glaciers that glitter like diamonds in the pale sun. The Arctic is a harsh teacher. Its lessons are not gentle. Here, every season, every storm, and every crack in the ice carries a message. To live here is to pay attention, to respect limits, and to anticipate the unexpected. Young hunters learn to track animals by footprints barely visible under fresh snow. Children memorize the shape of clouds that predict approaching blizzards. Families pass down knowledge about which plants can be used for medicine and how to preserve food when nothing grows above the snow. This wisdom is ancient, and it is alive, sustaining a civilization in one of the world's most extreme climates. But the Arctic is also changing. Climate shifts have transformed the ice, altered hunting patterns, and challenged the traditions that have guided generations. Sea ice melts earlier and returns later, forcing hunters to adjust routes that were reliable for centuries. Animals that were once plentiful become scarce, migrating differently than before. And the people of the Arctic must respond, innovating while honoring the customs that define their identity. They are forced to balance tradition with technology, survival with sustainability, and respect for nature with the realities of a warming world. Even in the face of these challenges, the Arctic spirit remains unbroken. Communities have not only survived, they have thrived. They celebrate the return of the sun after months of darkness with festival, song, and dance. They honor the animals that sustain them through prayers and rituals. They care for one another with a generosity that feels foreign in a world obsessed with individualism. In the Arctic, survival is never solitary. It is collective, a demonstration of humanity at its most authentic, most resilient, and most beautiful. The Arctic is also a place of remarkable innovation. Modern solutions have been woven seamlessly into traditional life. Renewable energy powers small villages. Satellite communications connect isolated communities to the outside world. Scientific research brings insight into ice movements and wildlife populations. Yet, even as technology reshapes life here, it never replaces the fundamental lessons taught by nature: patience, observation, respect, and balance. These principles remain central to survival, guiding every choice from hunting to homebuilding, from parenting to leadership. And perhaps the most inspiring truth of all is this: the Arctic teaches us that resilience is more than endurance. It is courage. Courage to face unimaginable cold, to navigate shifting landscapes, to confront uncertainty with a steady heart. Courage to teach children the ways of the land while preparing them for a world in flux. Courage to preserve culture, knowledge, and spirit when the environment itself seems to demand surrender. From the icy shores of the Arctic Ocean to the towering glaciers that hum with life, every element of this land is intertwined with the people who call it home. The aurora borealis lights the skies above as if celebrating their perseverance. Snow-capped mountains and frozen rivers become more than landscapes. They are witnesses to the harmony humans can achieve when they truly live in tune with nature. As the final rays of the Arctic sun stretch across the horizon, we are left with a profound lesson. The greatest adventure of all is learning to exist within the delicate balance of the natural world. The Arctic is not just a place of survival, it is a testament to humanity's capacity for resilience, adaptability, and hope. It reminds us that even in the coldest, most isolated corners of our planet, life thrives where respect, knowledge, and community endure. And as the wind whispers across the frozen expanse, carrying echoes of generations past, we understand this undeniable truth. Those who call the Arctic home are not merely living. They are guardians of a timeless legacy. A legacy that teaches the rest of the world what it truly means to endure, to adapt, and to hope. The Arctic is harsh. The Arctic is beautiful, and above all, the Arctic is alive. As the Arctic sun sets over this frozen frontier, we are reminded of a timeless truth. Survival here is not just about endurance. It is about courage, community, and respect for the natural world. The people of the Arctic teach us that even in the coldest, most remote corners of our planet, life thrives through resilience and connection. This is a land of extremes, of beauty, of lessons older than memory itself. And as we leave this icy kingdom, one thing is certain: the Arctic is not just a place. It is a story, a legacy, and a testament to the enduring human spirit. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, safe travels, and see you in the next video.